Hello everyone, my name is Christian. Welcome back to my hobby blog. I'm very excited today because I finished Prophet of Edan by Philip Chase just a few days ago. I've been meaning to do the review for this, but my car's been giving me a lot of issues and I think they've all been fixed. But when I went back to return the part that did not work well with my car, I got the money back, which is the most important thing, but then my check engine light came on as I was leaving, so I had to sit around and wait for that, and seems like it's running well now, so who knows, but that's sort of what I've been dealing with the last few days, so I haven't been able to get this review out. But I'm very excited to talk about this because book one, I rated a 8.5 out of 10. I loved it. I thought it was great. But this book was even better. And that was not something that I was expecting, because I knew it was going to get a little better, but I didn't realize how much better this book would work for me than book one, because book one feels like a very comfy blanket for me as a old school fantasy type of reader, like Tad Williams, Robert Jordan. And in this book, it feels like Philip has sort of evolved and become like an ascended Tad Williams, is sort of how I describe it. Because Tad Williams, what I love about his writing is the world building and the prose, and also just the world and learning about all the different races and the history and all that. And Philip Chase has all that, along with really great pacing, because that was a big issue I had with Memory of Sorrow Thorn, was that the pacing, especially in book one, it did not work well for me. And this book was just like, I read this book over like 4 or 5 days, because this was during the peak of my car not working, and I just needed a distraction. And Prophet of Edan was the perfect book for that, because there's so much really fascinating things going on. I love every single character in this book. I love the characters of Dayraven, Emar, Sakrara. I love the Theoth. I think I said that right. The Thoths. They're sort of like the giants. I absolutely love those chapters. They were my favorite of the new sort of characters in this book. I loved everything with Bledla as well, which is not something I was expecting, and also the king, along with everything going on there, even though as nasty as it is and as graphic as the scenes went in terms of the distance, I was really struck by this book. I absolutely loved reading this. This was a really easy read for me. And I ended up rating this a 9 out of 10, just to give my non-spoiler review of this. The prose is fantastic in this. I really think Philip, leveled up. Just to give a sort of quick description, he sort of leveled up from book one. Like, book two is just even better. I think one of the biggest strengths about this book is definitely the character arcs, because I love all of the things that Dayraven had to go through, because it really changed his character. Because in book one, he seemed like he was sort of running away and sort of having to stay ahead of all the danger. And in this book, he is coming face to face with danger, in the sense that there are now dragons that the priests of Edan are using, Bledla specifically. And I loved everything with the dragons in this book, and Bledla, and sort of the conflict between Dayraven and Bledla, and along with all of the other antagonists of the story, because there's so many there's so much movement in every single chapter, and it sort of felt like a Storm of Swords, if you've ever read that by George R. R. Martin, book 3 of Song of Ice and Fire, because that's one of my favorite books of all time. And one of the big reasons for that is that every chapter sort of builds upon the previous chapter, and this book is exactly the same way. And I really love what Philip did with the point of views as well, because book one, every point of view is sort of distanced from each other geographically. And in this book, they are going in and out of each other's story. And I love that type of story. I love when POVs intersect and interact. And we get a lot of fun surprises with the characters as the story goes on. And I really loved also the conflicts that Daywraven had within himself, with the elf sort of taking over his being, and him trying to find a way to control the elf, and sort of trying to find the best way to utilize the elf's power as well. And it was just really fascinating because the majority of this book, he is in training, learning how to wield the power and battling with the elf source within his head, and also having to travel a lot. And this is a thing I really appreciated about his storyline, is that his training is not in one location for the entire book. That is something that I can't stand in fantasy nowadays, is the training sequences and being the entire book, and it's just like characters talking at them. What Daywraven has to do is he has to actually think about what he needs to do. He's getting advice from a lot of different people. Ed, Sakara, getting it from Galore, I believe. He's in his storyline for a little bit. Galdore's amazing, by the way. I love all of the mentor characters. Again, it's one of my favorite tropes of fantasy, is the mentor. And that's something I really want to talk about to Philip about and question him sort of about this, because there were some really fascinating subversions in this book when it came to the mentors. And I won't get into that until the spoilers. But it was just really fascinating seeing Daywraven training and having to internalize the lessons that he got, and then having to apply those in real time. Because a lot of the issues that I have in fantasy is that the character will learn a lot about what they need to do with the magic and how to wield the very powerful sword or the magic, whatever. And then it immediately goes to a big conflict with the big bad, and they usually win or they lose. And in this book, the way that Philip does it is that he has a chain of trials that he has to go through that sort of deal with each and every part of the what he's going through with the elf and as well as the magic, because it's a very soft magic system. I don't want to use magic system because I know that's not the best descriptor, but as someone who's read a lot of fantasy, that's just sort of the term I grab onto. But I really enjoyed the magic in this book. There was some really cool spells. The one I think is my favorite is the one when Daywraven uses the water and sort of escapes a city using a big tidal wave that he created. That was really, really cool. I really enjoyed that sequence. And he's with all of the giants and sort of the bigger characters who are very strong and aligning themselves with him. It's really great. I really enjoyed this book. For anyone who hasn't read the series, the Edan series by Philip Chase, you need to read it. I'm really enjoying this. Book 1 was amazing, but I think book 2 is really getting to the 9 out of 10 range for me, because 9 out of 10, it means it's special for me. 8.5 is sort of it's really great. I would recommend it to anybody, but 9 out of 10 is when it starts to actually connect with me on a deeper level. So other authors who do this is Steven Erikson, Robin Hobb, Gene Wolfe, Frank Herbert, up to book 4 of the Dune series. But getting there in book 1, but I can firmly say that book 2 is it stands up there with Gardens of the Moon. And I was really fascinated by that because I just read Gardens of the Moon, so I had that on my mind, and we talked about it too on my channel. And it was really fun, but I went from Gardens of the Moon to this, and it was just it just continued that level of quality for me, and it was just really amazing. So anyone who hasn't started this and is looking for sort of someone to push them, this is me pushing you to read it. Please go read this. This is a really fantastic book. It's indie book, so you're supporting someone who has put a lot of work and effort into the series, and it shows. I really love this book. I just keep kind of repeating myself at this point. But I guess now would be a good time to go into the spoilers. I was really loving this book right from the get-go. From the beginning of Dayraven's training and all the way to around the middle point where Ed and Queen Faldera get murdered by Bloodlight and are strung up on these sort of crucifixes and killed. And I was really shocked by that when that happened. I remember I texted Philip immediately after reading that chapter, and I was like, I commend you, because I was not expecting that, because, as I said earlier, one of my favorite tropes is the mentor in fantasy. I love the mentor character. I love that archetype of character. And Erd and Faldera were both very important mentors for each of the characters of Dayraven and Sakura. And I love Sakura's storyline in this book as well, along with Dayraven's. But those two mentors, I thought they were going to die in book one. So when they didn't die, I let my guard down. I sort of allowed them to take over my interest and really become attached to them. And I really enjoyed reading the scenes. Erd, I think, is my favorite character in terms of mentors in this series, and as well as a lot of fantasy series, because this is what I meant earlier by he's sort of like an ascended or leveled up Tad Williams, because I was not able to really get that close to the mentor character in Memory Sour Thorn before their untimely death, very early in book one. It's a light spoiler. But I was really struck how Philip really made me care for these characters, and then halfway through the book, not even at the end, because a big battle is going on, and there's just an amazing unleashing of power, because Sakura and Dayraven, they're trying to take over the dragons from Bloodlight and the rest of the priests of Edan. And they almost get it. They learn a lot of important lessons in order to prepare them for actually taking over the dragons at the end of the book. But I really loved sort of that big showdown between Bloodlight and Dayraven. And it was really fascinating because I knew there was going to be victims and casualties to this event on both sides of the coin, or both sides of the battle. But I was really shocked how, after everything is done and our main characters get away, I was like, wait, what's Erd and Queen Faldera? Like, we haven't seen them in a hot minute, in a few pages. And then the chapter ends of the battle with them getting strung up, the corpses being strung up and nailed to the cross or to the crucifix. And I was really shocked by that because it was not something I expected. I loved it. I love when books make me feel really deeply and make me affected emotionally. So this was such a great sequence. And I really loved the dragon in this book as well. And this is why I really wish I had the audiobook for this, but I only have the ebooks right now of the whole series because, I don't know, I feel like I don't pick up on as much on audiobooks unless it's a reread, so that's why I was very excited to do the reread with audiobook. But when I finish the trilogy, I'm going to go back and listen to the audiobooks because I really want to hear Alan's dragon voice, because the dragon in this book is just fascinating. I love it. It's a very classic big red dinosaur, or not dinosaur, big red dragon, like in Dungeons and Dragons. So, which is one of my favorite games, which I never play, but I love it as a DM. But I really love how the dragons became such an important part in this book. And I really love, too, how after this event, everyone is like, okay, Dayraven, like, you need to go find the original dragon, this really ancient dragon. We don't even know if it's alive or what it even is. And so they have to, Dayraven and a few others of the Thoths, they go and try to find this dragon. And eventually they're like, okay, like, this is sacred ground. It's really dangerous. You have to go alone. And I really love this part of the book as well, because there's nothing more that I love in fantasy than our main character having to discover a very ancient location and learning about it, and then getting a big sort of lore dump I love that. I love that shit. Is my favorite sort of thing to read about in fantasy is the lore, and especially of ancient cities. I just finished Robin Hobb's Rainwild Chronicles, which has a very similar plot line in those books, and that was my favorite part of that series. But in this book, it felt like I was just really back into my really lovely niche or corner of fantasy where our characters are having to explore. And I really love that section because at the end of it, he finds this ancient dragon that's really big, and it's just really awesome. Like, I love this dragon. I want to hear the voice again. But I really love, too, the pathway up to the dragon real quick because it's very dangerous. Dayraven almost dies multiple times because he's having to climb on ice and glaciers and cliffs and all this stuff. And there's a point where he's almost about to let go. And he is saved by one of the animals that he sort of possesses with his magic. And I really loved that section as well. There's just so many great sections in this book. But I also really loved the dragon section, as I was talking about, because while this is happening, there's a really big battle going on in one of the coastal cities, I believe, where the Edan priests and Bloodlow and the King Torland, I think that's his name, or he's of Torland, but he's a really nasty character, and he's like, yeah, I'll just kill my wife right here and now, because she's pissing me off, and she called me impotent, and, that little POV was so fascinating to me, because we keep hearing about this guy throughout the series, and we have a few smaller scenes with him through the point of view of Bloodlow, who I think is my favorite character in this series from a POV sense, because Bloodlow is just such a nasty guy who is using Edan and this magic sort of to maintain his control. And especially once he gets the dragons, he is able to really lean into that and sort of just wreak havoc across the land. And we get a lot of scenes of people, entire villages, getting slaughtered and being fed to the animals or sort of the creatures that Bloodlow has taken over. And so it was really fascinating because I was not expecting by the end of the book that I think the king is killed. I read the ending very quickly, so I apologize if I don't remember everything. But I think the king is killed and Bloodlow as well is killed. And he lets loose the control of the dragons, and Dayraven is able to take control of them. And I really love that. Sakura is really important to this too. She and Dayraven fall in love, which is something I was not expecting. I don't really feel too much about the romance. I think they're good for each other. They're really great characters, the people who I want the most happiness for in the series, because it's just a lot of stuff they've been dealing with. And their relationship is really important because it's two of the most powerful magic wielders, and they're able to see eye to eye about a lot of things. And they're able to sort of teach each other about the strengths and the weaknesses, and they're vulnerable to each other. It's a really wonderful relationship, but I think it could have been done more, maybe. I just didn't feel as attached to this book. There was just so much awesome going on that this romance, I'm not much of a romance reader to begin with, so maybe that's why, but I really love the ending because we get a lot of close calls. Like, we have the character of Norn, who is sort of like a Dwarven character who just is really awesome in battle. And I really love reading his battle scenes along with the Thoths, because the sort of like Viking giants. And Norn is sort of the smaller dwarf. I think he's a dwarf or he's a gnome. I don't know exactly. But I just really love these characters, and they're all together in this big battle, and Ema is having to talk to his uncle and figure out a lot of his stuff. I can't remember too much about Ema this book, actually. I think he was off page for a lot of it. If not, then I feel really bad because I can't remember much. All I remember from Ema is towards the end of the book, he reunites with Dayraven because Dayraven, after having this really powerful magic unleashing, he has to take multiple days to recover, and Sakura's taking care of him, and he dreams that Ema is dead, and he has this really emotional moment where he thinks his best friend is dead, and this was my favorite part of the ending after the battle because it was very poignant for me. And I really enjoyed reading sort of the reunion because Dayraven is just, really broken up about this. He's crying about it. And Sakura is like, okay, I'm going to get Ema. And she brings him. And they have this really great reunion. And I love that. I really loved that event. But yeah, I sort of talked just really rambly and all that, but I hope this was a great review. I really enjoyed this book. This was easily my favorite of the series so far, and I really hope that book 3 just continues this because there's a lot of sort of cliffhangers that are left at the end of this book that I'm very curious about going forward. Like, I really want to know more about what Dayraven does with the dragons and how he will use them. Because the dragons think to themselves when Dayraven is taken over the dragon and he sort of hears a deep whisper about how the dragon wants to be free and he hates being under the control of Bloodline. And I really enjoy sort of that layer because there's a lot of complexity to that because what is Dayraven going to do? So I'm very excited to get to book 3, Return to Edan. And I really hope to see that the Edan priests are sort of removed from this world because I don't think this is a good religion. I think this is a very, at least the people who are in charge at the top of this religion, they need to be removed because there's a lot of evil going on in the name of Edan that I really don't appreciate, even though it really reflects our own times throughout thousands of years of history with the use of religion and war and sort of using that to frenzy up a lot of people. And there's just some really fascinating paths that book 3 can go. So I'm really excited to get into it. I want to thank Philip for introducing me to this series because I was a big fan of his YouTube channel and I was like, hey, like his books are on sale, I'll get them. Why not? Support my, favorite YouTuber. And so I got them and I was not expecting to love this series as much as I have. And book 2 just really cemented that this is probably a top 10 series for me. And I need to get around to doing a top 10 series video because I don't think a lot of people really understand what series works for me, and because I haven't talked about it, so it's my fault. So yeah, that's really it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed watching this, and thank you again to Philip for writing such a great series. I'm really excited to talk to him about this series as a whole once I finish, and I'm definitely getting some questions down on my phone to ask him because there's a lot that I have that I can't wait to ask him. So thank you all so much for watching, and please have a great rest of the day.